Another way you may get signals into your TriCaster is using IP. So let's talk about the different types of IP sources that can be connected to your TriCaster. Now, I do want to take a moment and just mention what the difference between these and NDI are, because in a way, they're all IP sources. NDI was broken out separately because it has its own auto discovery process, making it easy to work with and different in operation from how these sources will work. All of these will require manual setup in order to get them running. IP input is available on all TriCaster models. And these are all the formats that can be brought into the system. So we can do SRT, which is the one we'll take a closer look at next, but we can also support RTSP or RTP. RTMP and HLS are both supported, but it is important to realize that for these protocols to work, they need to be pulling from a server. They cannot pull directly from the encoder, but the encoder has to send to a server, and then the TriCaster can pull from a server down to itself. So there is a extra piece of equipment required in the middle. And then you can also configure IP formats with a variety of camera sources, and some are listed on the screen. Now, for all of these, we're going to use a tool called the IP Source Manager, where we'll go in, type in the information of how to communicate the protocol that we're looking to work with and the information required, and then we can bring it into our TriCaster and use it. I want to show you how to get an IP video source into your TriCaster. In this example, we're going to use SRT, and I have an application installed on my phone that is going to generate an SRT signal. It's already configured. I want to show you how I set my TriCaster to accept this signal. So on the home screen of our TriCaster, we're going to go to Add-ons, and then in here is an add-on called IP Source Manager. So select this, and this window will appear. Now, each entry you see in this window will be one IP source that we have configured. You can see right now I have none. To add new ones, you click this drop down, and in this list are all the different kinds of sources, devices, configurations that we can set up. So just to show you a few before we get to the one we're going to do, if you had a camera, let's say this camera here, I'd select it and I'd fill in the information appropriate, and that would build a source for me. If you had RTSP or HTTP or some other type of streaming format that's not SRT, you're going to use this web stream or file option, and you'll just have to type the URL. Typically, this will be in the manual with the product, and you would type that in, and that would be how you set that up. But in our case, we're going to use SRT. So I'm going to select this and choose SRT source from the list. And then in here, we've got a few things we need to supply. So we can give it a name. This will be the name that we are going to select inside the TriCaster for this SRT source. So I'm just going to call this one SRT listen. And I'm going to put the port that I'm using, because SRT, you have to define a network port that the transmission occurs on. I'm using port 9002. That's just something that you set up in the SRT device. The memo is just a piece of information if you want to put it in there. It has no bearing on this working or not. And then we need to supply these three pieces of information. So the first one is this bottom one, listener mode. With SRT, we can set it up either as a caller or a listener. So one device will be set up one way and the other device will be set up the other way. My phone happens to be set up as the caller, so I'm going to set myself to the listener. And then we have to tell what port we are using on the two devices. So I set up port 9002 on my phone. So I'm going to type 9002 in here since that's where the phone's sending it to. And then finally, we need to supply an IP address. Now, just to be complete on this, what number you type in here depends upon the status of this checkbox. If you are in listener mode, you can just type 0000 in here and that will work. But if you don't have this checked, then what you need to type in is going to be the IP address that you want to send the signal to. That would be for where the listener's IP address is. But since we're in listener mode, I'm going to leave it in zeros and hit OK. And you'll see that there's a new entry added into this list. And then, of course, if I had more, I would just add more as necessary. But now let's go into the TriCaster and try using this SRT source. So here we are in the TriCaster. To use this source, we'll just go to the input we want to assign it to. Let's say input 1 in my case. I'll click on the gear, go under local, and then in this list, you'll find the name of the SRT configuration you created. So there's my SRT listen 9002. I'm going to select that. And now it is listening. So at this point, I just need to start up the SRT feed on my phone. So I'm going to hit the record button on my phone. And in a second, you'll see the video appear. And there it is. You can see my laptop and my hand. I do want to mention that below this video, there is a PDF document that goes more into depth on how to use SRT feeds with your TriCaster. So you should check that out for more detailed explanations on all the other features available with SRT.